Welcome back to the channel. My name's Adam Smith, and inside this GameFound Preview Series, I am very excited to be checking out Earth Under Siege Flashpoint. This one comes from Dark Horizon Games. The final version of Earth Under Siege landed in 2024, where it became one of my hidden gems of that year. And for those that missed out on that original campaign, which was on Kickstarter, this new one is on GameFound. And it's a reprint, as I mentioned, with additional content as well. So if you missed out the first time around, you have a second opportunity to jump in. And the purpose of this GameFound Preview Series is to help you make an informed decision as to whether or not this game is for you. For those interested in following along with the campaign and finding out all the information regarding it, I'll put a link to that campaign in the top right-hand corner right now, as well as in the pinned comment and video description. It is worth noting, I do have a Kickstarter preview series already on the channel for this game. However, it was in its prototype form at the time years ago. Now we're using the final version of the game, and we're not just doing a regular mission, we're doing a Spec Op mission, and on top of that, we're also layering the assault mode rules on top. So what that means is I've set up for a Spec Op mission following the regular how to set up instructions found inside the rulebook. And once I've done that, I move to the assault mode rules, which is a one-pager to go over all the different changes that come with the assault mode. I'm going to touch on each of these to show you how they actually impact setup for this mission. And then, of course, we'll take a look at the loadouts for the characters, get our characters all set up and ready to go, and we'll dive right into the action in a subsequent video. First things first, you're going to choose a mission from the campaign book, which is currently off camera. I picked Spec Ops Mission 14, Zethan Blueprints. We'll be going after that one. Once you know which mission you're going to go after, come to the rulebook on page 8 and you'll find 15 steps to take you through how to set the game up initially for a regular play of the game, but then you're going to have to reference a specific assault mode page in the campaign book, which will add those additional layers in, and that's what I'll be going over with you right now. Here's a look inside the campaign booklet at page 69, which is a Spec Ops Mission 14 we are going to play. You'll see in the top right-hand corner, it mentions Assault Mode HQ Level 2. Take note of this, as when we move to the Assault Mode section to set things up, that's going to become important. You'll also see the objectives there to get the blueprints and the engineer to the extraction point. This is a mandatory objective. The setup here on the right as well talks about the exclamation mark and question mark tokens, which are going to be placed central in the map, and you'll see this. We'll talk more about it later on. There's also special rules below. We'll touch on all these towards the end of the video. For now, let's transition over to the assault mode rules, and I'll show you how to layer those in. On page 17 of the campaign book, all the assault mode rules are laid out. Now, why would you want to play assault mode might be your question. Well, it's for players, as it mentioned in the top left-hand corner, that prefer non-campaign play, or maybe you're just looking to play the game in a one-shot variety. And if that's the case, then you could pick any regular mission or any Spec Op mission and turn it into assault mode play by going ahead and following these rules right here. We're going to go through each and every one of them in detail. Now, before we get into the specifics of setup for assault mode, let's talk about the squad I've assembled for this mission. I've got Commander Hicks, the team leader. He's set up as a squad member. If I flip over the dashboard, you'll see in the top left-hand corner, it always tells you whether you're on the squad member side or on the operative side. So the other side's operative. That would have us using a deck of cards. It's the full-fledged version of the character. This squad member side is the more streamlined version. So if you're playing solo, you can control a variation between operatives and squad members to your likings. If you want to have full control over multiple decks, you can go the operative route with every single character, or you could have a couple of them be some squad members to kind of parse down some of the admin of the game. So you get a choice there, which is really nice. You can start off light when you begin and then start to up these to the full character operative state as you become more experienced over time. So we've got Commander Hicks as a squad member. The other one on the far right-hand side, this is Billy. He is a sniper, and I've set him up as a squad member. The last individual of the squad is an operative, and it's Kyle Trickshot Moss. He is an assassin. He should be very useful for us, and you can see on the left-hand side there, I've got his cards all laid out. We're going to go through actually getting that deck set up for assault mode. We'll talk more on this in a little bit. Now let's touch on the handful of altered setup rules for assault mode. The very first one is specific to the gear decks. You can see in the center there, purple on the left-hand side is the Zethan Armory cards, and then on the right, blue cards are the allied gear cards. We'll start things off with the Zethan Armory cards, opening up the deck and laying them in the different piles per the HQ tier, which you could find in the top right-hand corner, 1, 2, and 3. Remember earlier when we looked at the mission for Assault Mode, in that white area in the top right of that page, it stated HQ 2. So at this point for this gear deck, we take a look at anything that equals that or is lower. Those are the things we keep inside the gear deck. The rest go back to the box. So HQ 3 there on the far right is going back to the box. 2 and 1 are being shuffled together, and that will make the Zethan Armory card deck or gear deck for this mission. And in the exact same fashion, we take a look at the Allied gear decks, and again, the HQ level in the top right, we're going to be keeping in 1 and 2, shuffling those together. The third goes back to the box. With the gear decks all sorted out, let's now move to the Complications deck. Here's a look at the Complications deck. I've already split things out by basic and special, so find the deck with the back that looks like this, break it out based on the bottom left-hand corner for each of the 2 different types of cards in the deck, and then also remove these 2 complications that I put off to the side, Uncommon Valor and Low Morale. These are not used in the Assault Mode. Remove them from the setup, and then from here you're going to take your HQ value, which in this case is 2 as we know, times it by 3, which will tell you how many cards at random we're going to take from the basic deck. So I'll flip this over, shuffle it up, draw 6 at random, and then being that we pulled 6 from the basic deck, we're going to take an equal amount of those randomly from the special deck for a total of 12 cards. So I'll shuffle this deck up next, take 6 from there. So 6 and 6, we get 12 cards, shuffle them all together. The Complication deck is all done. We're going to move to the Spawn decks. Here's a look inside the green Spawn deck, and I've got all the cards laid out on the left-hand side. What we want to focus on is the Empowered Threat and the Unknown Threat. If your HQ level is 2 or less, you're going to leave the Unknown Threat in the deck. The Empowered Threat will come out. It's not used during gameplay. Now, if it's an HQ level 3 Assault Mode mission, then you're going to actually use the Empowered Threat, and the Unknown Threat will come out. Just like that, we're all squared away. We now shuffle all the cards together to make up the green Spawn deck. We'll also take the red Spawn deck and do the exact same thing, removing the Enhanced Threat card out of the equation and shuffling the deck. Spawn decks are all set up. These 2 cards removed. We're now moving to the Tactics upgrades. For tactic upgrades, we're going to talk about the operatives first. I have 1 operative in my squad, which is a full character, Kyle Trickshot Moss. He's got his tactics deck here. The starter deck is denoted by the icon in the top right-hand corner, so all these cards are already part of his deck. But right now, thanks to the Assault Mode and the upgrades we get for doing Assault Mode, we get to customize his deck a bit based on the HQ level, which we know is 2. So the level 3 deck of the cards available for Kyle is removed from the equation. And from the remaining decks, level 1 and 2, we can take up to 3 cards from each of them, and for whichever cards we choose to put into our deck, it's a 1-for-1 replacement with a starter card. So here's a look at all the level 1 cards laid out in the Tactics Upgrades options for Kyle. So you'll see some have doubles, others are singles. And again, remember, when we're picking up to 3 from here, it's up to 3. You don't have to take any. You could choose 1, 2, or 3. They're swapped out with starter cards. And we do the exact same thing with level 2 in just a moment. So let's pick some cards. Now let's quickly go over the different cards here that I could choose from at level 1. We got Style and Substance up top there, an attack card. It's an ongoing effect. Your ranged attacks are going to deal additional damage, and your melee attacks will gain a red die. If you have the focus token that matches in the center, each time you roll a black die, you can choose the result of the die. This is really good for him because both of his weapons actually use black dice, which is handy, plus the fact that he gets that additional damage and the red die. Those things are very nice, so a good card for him. I'm not sure if I want to take 2 or just 1. I'm kind of leaning towards 1 right now. Double Tap is the next one. It's an attack card. You play after hitting an enemy to be able to do another attack afterwards, so long as using a ranged weapon, which I have. The Silence Pistol is a ranged weapon, so very nice. And then the focus token benefit there is the attack dealing additional damage. So that's really good. Any extra damage, especially when going up against some of the bigger enemies, is going to be handy. So I'm almost tempted to maybe take 1 from each pile rather than going ahead with 2 from the same, although that's tempting too. Now, in terms of the utility cards down here in the movement one, this utility one says, I make it look easy. You play it when you play another tactics card to trigger the card's focus effect without discarding a focus token. This is really awesome because something like Double Tap would work really well with this in that you're making an attack, but now you get the opportunity to play this card afterwards, and now you take advantage of the additional damage for not paying a focus token. Pretty cool. You also have the potential to go ahead and refresh your gear cards if you wish. Now this one, Quit Slowing Me Down utility, is discarding a card to recover 1, very nice, and you can remove a negative condition, so a perfect utility card and a support card in that. Now Like Water seems very beneficial, especially in certain situations, maybe when you're running through a whole bunch of enemies, because it has an ongoing effect at the top, says you automatically disengage when moving, but even better down below, using a focus token for movement. Each time you enter or leave a zone, you get to deal a damage to the enemy in that zone just when you're running through it. So that's a very tempting card as well. Now before I go ahead and actually swap those 3 cards into my starter deck, I might as well show you the cards in the deck in the first place. We got Second Wind, Duck and Cover, No Time to Bleed, Move, 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 Hide and Seek yet again, Right in the Face, Right in the Face, I'm Just Too Good, I'm Just Too Good, I Make It Look Easy. We got a shot in there, the ricochet shot, Kill 'em with Style, or Don't Bother. After taking a look at some of the cards I was swapping out, I've had a change of heart. I'm actually going to choose not to put this card into my deck, and that's because I actually have one already in my deck that's exactly the same, so it gives you the ability to bring another one in if you wish, but I'm happy with just one based on what I'm constructing here, so I'm going to decide not to take advantage of all 3 cards coming from the level 1 deck, so we're only going to be swapping out 2, and I'm going to be swapping out these 2, so I'm getting rid of these ricochet shots at the very top because I think situationally these ones at the bottom will be more useful. We now move on to level 2 for the tactic card upgrades. We can choose up to 3 cards from these in order to mix into our deck. So what do we want to take? We got some attack cards here. We also have a defense card and a movement card. Kyle's going to take these 2 level 2 upgrades at the very bottom, replacing the starter cards above with them. So Kill 'em with Style or Don't Bother, both of those coming out of the deck in order to get something where I can shoot from the hip, potentially take down an enemy before a spawn event actually comes after me, allowing me to deal additional damage as well, which is nice. And this movement card should be a nice addition to the deck. And a last minute change of heart, I'm going to take a 3rd second level card. I'm going to take that second dashing strike card. We're going to get rid of this one here. We actually have 2 of them in my starter deck already, right in the face, but I'll let one of them go as an attack card to gain an additional movement card that can still be beneficial during attacks at times. The other 2 individuals on the squad are known as squad members, streamlined versions of operatives, and so they come with their own member abilities. And you can see based on the HQ level, you'll know exactly what abilities that character gets. So here is Hicks. He's got HQ 1 and 2 abilities sitting right above his dashboard. Same thing for Billy. I'll show you in just a moment. And these cards are actually going all the way up to the 4th position. But in this case, at HQ 2, we stop at the 2nd. Here's a look at Billy's squad member abilities. We'll be diving into them as we get into gameplay in the near future. The next upgrade we take advantage of inside of Assault Mode is gear upgrades. We draw a number of gear cards from each of the 2 decks equal to the HQ level times 3. So HQ level 2 times 3 is 6. We're getting 6 cards from each deck in the center there. Here's a look at the 6 Zethan gear card upgrades we have to choose from as a squad, and the 6 allied gear cards. In this section, we have a plasma blade, med kit, the hunter stealth suit, tactical armored vest, scorpion ultra quiet pistol, and Hawkeye sniper rifle. For the Zethan gear cards, we have Pain Inducer, the Hollow Targeting System, Zethan Interface Device, Zethan Communicator, Enhanced Energy Cell, and Nanofiber Armor. Now, the one thing to note around Assault Mode is as you're not playing in a progression in terms of a campaign, you don't have to discover Zethan gear upgrades in the same way. The second we gain them here as a gear upgrade, we're able to use them in full. Here's Kyle's current loadout. We're going to give him 2 allied gear cards. We're going to give him the Hunter Stealth Suit and also the Scorpion Ultra Quiet Pistol. Here's a look at his brand new loadout. He's got a Benner pistol and also the advantage of the Stealth Suit, which will certainly come in handy. The Hunter Stealth Suit special states, if the lights out condition's in effect, you may make stealth checks in place of defense checks when attacked. And his Ultra Quiet Pistol should be a nice upgrade from the original one that he had. Billy, the squad member, currently has a Prowler silenced rifle and a sniper scope attached to it. So we're going to grab 2 gear cards to assign to him from this upgrade pool. Billy's going to gain the Zethan Nanofiber Armor and the allied gear card Hawkeye sniper rifle. This armor has a reaction, as you can see with the green icon, that says at the beginning of the refresh phase, you can heal a damage or remove one negative condition. Should come in handy. Now the Hawkeye sniper rifle for Billy is going to sit in his backpack slot, and that's because it generates a lot of noise. Unlike his Prowler silenced rifle, which is silent, this one is going to generate 2 noise, which is going to have detection around him from quite a radius, and so to reduce the chances of the alarm going off from the very beginning, which we don't want to see happen, I'm going to place that in his backpack and he'll try to go in quietly with the rest of them. Later on, if things get crazy, which they undoubtedly will, then we're going to go ahead and use this rifle to our advantage as it's more powerful than the silenced rifle, hitting for 1 damage. This Hawkeye hits for 2. Last but not least, we have Commander Hicks, squad member. He is a team member, and he has Command HUD and Prowler silenced rifle. Let's give him 2 gear upgrades to help him out. I've given Commander Hicks the Tactical Armored Vest and the Zethan Communicator. The Tactical Armor Vest has a cool reaction on it. You can exhaust it when you're discarding a focus for defense during a defense check to gain an additional red die. Always nice. The Zethan Communicator was the final choice. You use an order token in order to exhaust this to look at the top 3 cards of a spawn deck. You can place 1 on the bottom of the deck and the rest go back on top in any order. This should really help us to keep an eye on what's coming in the future and mitigate some of that nastiness. That's going to do it for the gear upgrades. Let's now move to the Valor Bag. For the Assault mode, all the standard green Valor tokens are already inside the draw bag, but now we have to choose between either the red or the purple tokens, and again, it's by the HQ value, so in this case, again, 2, so 3 will not be added in. So if we choose the Weapons Lab, we're taking piles 1 and 2. If we choose the Sci Lab, we got piles 1 and 2 to throw in. We have to choose between weapons and more utility support-based tokens that are added into the bag. For this play, I'm going to go with the weapons. Weapons Lab level 1 and 2 now mixed into the bag. That's it for the Valor tokens. Next, a quick mention on data tokens. If players successfully gain a data token during a mission, each team member may immediately replace one of their action tokens with an upgraded action token, and then the upgraded action tokens placed in the same box as the token it replaced, available or exhausted, and in the same state, damaged or undamaged. In this mission, we don't have one of those tokens to gain. Now let's touch on injury and trauma tokens and how they work in Assault mode. If an operative would ever gain a wound token, they instead draw a wound card from the matching deck, whether it's an injury or a trauma. Here's a look at the wound cards, and as you'll see on the left, you've got the injury cards, and on the right, you've got the trauma cards, depending on what type of wound you got. You'll be drawing a card at random from one of these decks, and then placing that card on the top of your discard pile, as I mentioned. That's how a wound token works on the operative. Now, if you have squad members like I do, I have 2 of them, and they happen to get a wound token, whether it's the injury side or the trauma side, you'll place that token inside this area here for conditions, and you'll also gain a stun condition. If a squad member ever accumulates 5 wound tokens, they have succumbed to their injuries and are removed from the game. If an operative ever has 5 wound cards in its deck, then they have succumbed to their injuries and are removed from the game. Now let's move to the strategy cards, and when you're selecting a strategy for the mission, I've got the 3 laid out here. You're selecting a card level that matches the HQ level. We know our HQ level is 2, so you can see at the very top of each card after the description, it states 2, so all the other strategy cards have been removed out of the equation. Now, before I pick a strategy, the first thing I'm going to do is take a look at the mission itself and the main objective. It says in the top right, get the blueprints and the engineer to the extraction point. It is mandatory to do so. If you want to find out more information on your objective, the special rules will have those detailed out. So the very first thing it talks about is the blueprints. The stack of objective tokens, which you can see a question mark on the very top of it, represents the computer with the blueprints. An operative in the zone with the objective tokens can perform a sabotage action to begin downloading the blueprints. Failing the check places an investigative token in the operative zone, and the action can be attempted again as an additional action. Once the download has begun, then you remove 1 objective token from the stack at the end of each round until finally the exclamation token is the final one. So you'll take 1 off at the end of each round all the way down until you see this. That token then represents the flash drive the blueprints have been downloaded onto, which can be picked up by an operative in its zone with the pickup action. The technician on tile J5 represents the engineer that the players must capture. He's up there in the top right in the blue shaded room all by himself. As an order, an operative in his zone may restrain the captive, and after he's restrained, he will move with the operative that restrained him. If the operative becomes down while this is happening, another operative in his zone can restrain and captive. The captive that's with the operative in the extraction point will leave with them. The next special rule is called Combative Captive. Due to the engineer, which you can see here being a resistant captive, he doesn't want to go willingly, operatives in his zone will suffer +2 TN to all checks. TN is target number, so a +2 to all checks. The operative that is restraining the captive may not perform free actions, automatically fail stealth checks, and may not enter the ventilation shaft, of course, with the captive. Last but not least is called Kill Teams. If the alarm is triggered, immediately spawn a Marauder. That Marauder is going to spawn in the on-point operative zone, and an additional one will come in the zone with the engineer, which might result in both Marauders being spawned in the exact same zone. With all the information known about the mission, our squad, and our gear, let's now talk about the strategy cards, going over them at a high level. We have Espionage on the left, an additional setup step if we choose this strategy. It says Deep Cover. Choose a green blip that does not have line of sight to an objective token or a security door. Remove that green blip and place the operative with a disguise equipped in its place. So whichever strategy we choose here, we're going to get some cards that are going to tie based on the icon in the top right-hand corner, and one of them, in this case for sure, will be the disguise, which we can then put onto one of our characters and use that espionage ability. Now, down below, there's a separate ability here. It says Hack Communications. You get this. Once per mission, an operative may place a false signal token in any zone not in line of sight of an enemy. Unaware enemies treat that zone as their target zone. They're going to head there, and if an enemy enters the token zone, you remove the token from the mission, so a nice distraction. Another potential strategy we have at our disposal is Breach and Clear. This one has an ability that says Go, Go, Go. Once per round, target a blip token that has not been spawned. Each operative may move up to 2 zones as long as they end their movement with line of sight to the target. All operatives move simultaneously. Then below, it says Clear the corners. After the operatives move via Go, 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 they make an attack as if in Overwatch, which is a really nice ability, and actually based on the large room that we have close to us, this Breach and Clear could be very handy for that. Last but not least, we have the Black Ops strategy. It has an additional setup instruction here. It says cut external power line. The lights out condition is in effect for the entire mission. Enemies have -2 to their perception. This is going to help you if you want to go in covertly. And at the very bottom, it says Halo. Operatives may choose to start on the ventilation shaft tile instead of an insertion point. Each operative may choose differently. Now that we know the strategies, if we take a look at the overall map here, we can see how we can potentially use these. So the espionage one, for instance, Deep Cover, would allow us to change out somebody with a green blip with a disguise, but it has to be a green blip that doesn't have line of sight to an objective or a security door. So we have a security door in red, which you can see over there and up there. So that is going to eliminate this one and this one. You also have all of these in here, which have line of sight to the objective, but this green blip here and this one right here have no line of sight to a security door or to the objective, so we could get somebody into a disguise in one of those 2 positions if we went with that one. And you would divvy these up between the different individuals in your squad. The Breach and Clear strategy could absolutely be useful in this location right here. We have the objective to get to in order to start downloading, but we have 3 green blips in that room. So being able to breach into the room through the door and then be able to lay down fire on the enemies, hopefully take most of them out while getting the benefit of Overwatch, would be a really nice advantage. If we chose Breach and Clear, here are the cards we would gain from that strategy. The final strategy is Black Op, and this one's really cool from the standpoint we can cut the power line and get the enemies to have -2 on their perception, but not only that, we're able to take advantage of having an operative start on one of the ventilation shafts, and we can actually choose this for each operative differently, which is very interesting. And as you can see, we have ventilation shaft here, which links over to that one. And a person that actually would be perfect for that, based on his current loadout, is Kyle. Now, the stealth suit that Kyle has a special. It says if the lights out condition's in effect, you may make stealth checks in place of defense checks when attacked. Should come in real handy. I'm leaning towards Black Ops, so these are the cards I'm going to be able to dole out between my squad. I've now gone ahead and distributed all the cards that pertain to the Black Ops strategy across my squad members. You have a choice as to who gets what. And I've chosen night vision goggles here for Commander Hicks. This is awesome because it can be equipped in addition to another card in the body slot. So this card here as a reaction can be exhausted to use before discarding one of these focus tokens. And then I can treat it as a wild, a nice benefit. Now, based on my Black Ops strategy, Kyle's going to be very useful getting deep inside of the facility, and so he's going to have his night vision goggles on as well. Again, can be equipped while he has something in the body slot. He's also going to get a little boost based on the toolkit to his science, which will be nice, and then he's going to have some stun grenades in case he needs to clear something or stun some enemies in the future. Last but not least, we have Billy here, who also has night vision goggles on as well, can convert these stealth tokens when he discards them to treat them as wilds, very handy. Gas canister here says, once per mission, target a room zone on the other side of a closed door, or if you are in the ventilation shaft, you can choose a room zone with an access token. All figures in the same room as the chosen zone are stunned. This could come in really handy and will come in handy based on my strategy to deal with that first room using a combination of Billy and Commander Hicks together. The gas canister should come in real handy with hoping to stun all of the enemies that are inside that room so we can burst in and hopefully take the majority, if not all of them, down if things work out. Now, we also are going to equip Billy with the fiber optic cable, which allows him to exhaust this to choose an adjacent zone, maybe a zone on the other side of a closed door as well, to spawn all the blips that can draw line of sight to that zone. So the great news with this is we can actually see what's in the room before we make the decision to use the gas canister. We're now ready to go ahead and draw up some cards for our operatives. We have one operative in Kyle Trickshot Moss. He's going to draw 5 cards, but he's also going to add an additional card for each other squad member on his team. So his hand size limit is now going from 5 to 7. He's drawing 7 cards right now. Here are the 7 cards that Kyle drew up. He got himself Style and Substance. He has Right in the Face, Duck and Cover, Hide and Seek, I'm Just Too Good, Hide and Seek Yet Again, and Second Wind. Now, with our strategies out of the way, the complication deck now comes into play. So regardless of how we've strategized, these complications could throw wrenches into our plan. Let's go ahead and draw them per HQ level. So I'm drawing 2 of them to find out what we get. Remember, earlier in the video, these are comprised of 6 basic and 6 special cards. So let's find out what we get. Off the top, we got ourselves, on alert. All enemies have +1 to their perception, which isn't good because I had cut the external power line based on the Black Ops strategy, which reduces the perception by 2. Now it's going to increase back up by 1, so we're only getting a benefit of -1 for perception for this mission. So thematically, the enemy almost seems like it's reacting to the things we're trying to accomplish, which is pretty cool. Next up, off the top of the deck, we have Prepared Defenses. This one says, set up, place an Overwatch token in each zone containing a blip with line of sight to an objective. Based on our mission, we have 1 objective token stack here, so any of the blips that are green, which are within line of sight, and line of sight is drawn from the center of a specific space to the center of another, but only goes orthogonally, not diagonally. There's only 2 green blips on the right side, which are going to get the Overwatch token. The Overwatch tokens are not a good thing because as soon as they can draw line of sight to one of my squad members, they're going to be able to go ahead and attack. So maybe having the gas canister in this situation is even better now because these individuals seem to be prepared. It's also worth mentioning my actual squad members can go into Overwatch as well to provide benefits, and I certainly think I'm going to be using that in order to try and help me take out this green blip once we crack the door at the beginning of gameplay. There's also a helpful reminder card for the technicians, which you can place either on the game board if you wish, especially if you're not planning on being in those spaces for a while. But it's a nice reminder of some of the effects that can occur with these technicians in the future. And once we get into gameplay deep enough that this room becomes a thing, we will go ahead and move this out. Now, the technicians are basically sitting at the desk, but they're monitoring all the cameras around. And you'll see a camera up there in the top left. There's another camera way down there in the bottom right. They're actually looking through both of those cameras at all times. And if you actually get spotted, they can trigger the alarm from where they're at. So very important piece of the strategy. We'll talk more about this when we get into gameplay. The final step of setup is around the ventilation shaft. If you happen to have these shaft tokens, which you can see dark in the very north corner of this area, and there's also one in the far bottom right section of this map, you need to put out the ventilation shaft tile in play, even if you're not planning on using it initially. But as I am, because it's part of my Black Ops strategy, I can choose to place any operatives I wish inside the ventilation shaft to start the game off. As mentioned earlier in the video, I also grabbed the wrong mini for one of my operatives. I've gone ahead and switched it out. So we got Kyle here on the right side. He's going to go into the enter position of that ventilation shaft. Now, I was half tempted to potentially place Commander Hicks inside the ventilation shaft as well, but I think I'll keep both of them inside this room, and we're going to aim to potentially use Overwatch, especially for Billy, and he's going to try and take down that blip at the beginning of part number 1, as I mentioned, and I'll keep the two of them together as they traverse around the corner towards the camera and that door leading into the larger objective room. And that, my friends, is going to wrap up the how to set up video for Earth Under Siege Flashpoint coming from Dark Horizon Games, going back for reprint on GameFound. The link for that campaign's in the pinned comment and video description. And join me in the very near future as we dive into part number 1 gameplay to see whether I can actually extract the engineer out along with the blueprints and get out of this facility alive. Thanks again for watching, and as always, keep on rolling solo!